Hello, everyone. I'll be talking about providing formative feedback by Susan M. Brookhart and Anthony J. Nitko. So, how do we define feedback or feedback definition according to Brookhart and Nitko? Feedback is information about a student's performance or understanding. Formative feedback is information about a student's performance or understanding that is intended to improve learning. Using feedback effectively is one of the most powerful and positive things a teacher can do for student learning. Feedback can come from many sources, including teacher, peer, self, parent, books, and technology. So talking about the feedback in assessment of learning, when we return examination papers, when we return different assessment forms, they're actually being graded. The grade itself is actually a feedback. When you give some comments, then that's actually a feedback. When you say very good, excellent, or not so good performance, then they are actually feedback. They come from teachers, they come from the peers, they come from your own self. You can feedback your own self. They can be from parents, or they can be from books, or for now, because of the advent of technology, we have feedback from technology. Feedback referencing schemes. So we have norm reference feedback compares performance to other students. Your paragraph was the best in the class. So there's actually a comparison. Criterion reference feedback compares performance to a standard and describes what student can or cannot do with reference to the criteria, with reference to the learning competency, with reference to the standard. You are particularly good at using a variety of descriptive adjectives. So if you notice, if you look at the criterion reference example, the performance is being compared to the standard or to the learning competency. Norm reference is actually a comparison of your performance with the rest of the students in the class or with the rest of the learners in the group. We have self-reference. Feedback compares a student's performance to his own past performance or sometimes expected performance. So you might have some comparison of your past performances with the present performance, or maybe you have some expectation and then you compare the actual performance with what you are expecting. This paragraph is better than the last one you wrote. That's an example of self-reference feedback. Feedback reference schemes. The best formative feedback for practice work is criterion reference or self-reference feedback. Use criterion reference feedback for the work of most students in most situations. For students whose beliefs about their own capabilities are low, use self-reference feedback to show them how they are improving. Feedback focus. Feedback can vary according to whether it describes results or processes underlying results. Outcome feedback is knowledge of results. You got a B on that paper. You got a 90% on that paper. You got a perfect score on that paper. Cognitive feedback describes the connections between aspects of the task or the process students use to that task and the student's achievement. It doesn't seem like you use the study guide very much. Help students know what to do to improve. So there would be some cases that you give cognitive feedback and they actually help students how to improve themselves cognitively. 4 levels of feedback according to Hattie 2009. In some cases, that's for Haiti or Hattie 2009. Level 1, task or product level. Comments about how well tasks are understood and performed. Your report presented a clear description of each planet, but only the names of their moons. Try to find some more information about the moons. Level 2, process level. Comments about the process students use to do their work. I wonder what the report would look like if you organized each planet section in the same way. That way, readers could see the comparisons among planets more easily. Level 3, self-regulation level. Comments about students' understanding and monitoring of their own activities. You seem comfortable working with a large amount of information. Can you come with some ideas about how to decide which information is more important so you know what to emphasize? Level 4, self-level. Personal comments and evaluative judgments not effective and should not be used. My boy, good boy, excellent boy. So, according to authors, these are personal comments and evaluative judgments not effective and should not be used. Feedback function. Descriptive feedback gives the information about the work. You develop your main character with lots of thoughtful details. Mastery-oriented specifies attainment or improvement, criteria met or not met, as an example. Learning-oriented constructs achievement or the way forward. Example, next steps or suggestions for extending learning. Students see as informative and useful. Evaluative feedback passes judgment on the work or students. Giving an A, rewarding with stickers, saying good job. Maybe focus on classroom or individual management, rewarding or punishing. May reflect performance orientation, approving or disapproving. Students see as controlling. Delivering feedback. How are we going to deliver feedback? The best method to deliver feedback depends on the student, the teacher's relationship with the student, the content knowledge and skills in question, and the particular assignment or assessment. Feedback can be delivered with various kinds of timing, but should be given when student has the opportunity to improve the work. Feedback can be delivered in various amounts, but should be given in an amount a student can process and address. Offer suggestions for improvement based on student need. We have the reminder prompts. Restate the learning target. Remember, we are learning to punctuate compound sentences. Scaffold prompts. Give the student more support to complete the task. Can you find a word in that problem that suggests addition? Good. What two numbers should you add? Example prompts. Model the work that students need to do, inviting them to use one of the teacher's examples on or create his own based on it. Select the most appropriate mode of delivery. Oral conversation, especially effective. Written comments throughout, at the end, or both. Handwritten or via computer. As a demonstration, do it like this. Consider the audience. Individual feedback best when possible. Feedback to groups is usually in the form of a lesson or a mini lesson. It seems several of you are having trouble deciding how to begin solving this kind of equation. Let's go over again how to isolate the variable on one side of the equation, all by itself, and why that's important. I'll stop and ask someone to explain why we did each step. Select the most appropriate mode of delivery. Oral conversation, especially effective. Take note, these are repetition. Written comments throughout, at the end, or both handwritten or via computer. As a demonstration, do it like this. And you have to consider the audience. Individual feedback best when possible. Feedback to groups is usually the form of a lesson or mini lesson. It seems several of you are having trouble deciding how to begin solving this kind of equation. Let's go over again how to isolate the variable on one side of the equation all by itself and why that's important. I'll stop and ask someone to explain why we did each step. Then we do the reflection. Reflect on your word choice. Be clear, be specific. Use first or third person and focus on the word. I don't understand what you mean here. This paragraph doesn't have supporting details. Avoid second person. You did not use supporting details. Keep the tone supportive. Helping students use feedback. Before they receive feedback, students need to be aware of a learning target or larger learning aim in order to give the feedback a reference point. After they receive the feedback, students need an immediate opportunity to use the feedback. That's the most important thing, to use the feedback, apply the feedback, because applying the feedback, using the feedback would actually give additional learning. So what has been learned is not actually clear. What has been learned is confusing, or what has been learned is not the correct one. But through the feedback of the teacher, will actually let the students understand better the learning target, the learning competency, and whatever confusion could be clarified. And it will lead to more learning or deeper learning. Feedback environment. Teachers should create a classroom environment that communicates to the student that learning is possible for everyone and that mistakes and revisions are a natural part of the learning process. And that learning is actually passing through mistakes and revisions. So with the many mistakes that will lead to learning, as long as you give appropriate feedback with the many revisions and you give feedback on the many revisions, that would actually produce deeper learning. Teachers must explicitly discuss the learning process and the value of the feedback and provide relevant formative feedback to students that is patently useful to them. The students must have mental model of the learning environment that understands it. It is for learning and feels emotionally safe. So there might be some cases that the feedback is actually hurting, but that's part of the learning. Do not sugarcoat, tell the truth, but in such a way that the wording of the feedback is actually in an appropriate manner. Differentiating feedback. For successful students, offer more than good grades. Show that you've thoughtfully considered the work. Identify what they did well according to the criteria. Offer constructive criticism when appropriate. For struggling students, deal with the negative feelings first. Focus on self-reference feedback and emphasize improvement. Affirm what the student has done correctly. Offer supportive prompts for improvement. Feedback for English language learners. For English language learners, take into account the steps and stages in the development of the student's language proficiency. The philosophy and principles of ELL, instructional program, your school uses. Provide feedback to students with reference to the tasks they have done and the criteria. Modeling good English rather than correcting their English. So all of us are actually English language learners. Some are experts, but most of us are actually English language learners. The English is not our mother tongue, so all of us are actually learning English. Strategies for peer feedback. Provide a rubric or other structured listing of criteria. Have students work in pairs or small groups. Prepare the students to give and receive peer feedback. Set ground rules. Explicitly teach key skills. Technology-assisted feedback on students' work. So with the advent of technology for now, so some software would give automatic feedback. Use comments, track changes functions, send comments via email, provide audio recorded feedback. So I have given examples what provide the audio recorded feedback. There was a video where I actually provided the feedback of the assessment results. Do you remember that one? Types of feedback in computer-based instruction. Knowledge of response. Computer provides item level, correct, incorrect information. Answer until correct. Learner must stay on the same test item until it is correct. Knowledge of correct response. Computer provides item level, correct, incorrect information and gives the correct answer. Types of feedback in computer-based instruction. Topic contingent. Computer provides item level, correct or incorrect information and routes the student back to learning material or to additional material. Response contingent. Computer provides item level, correct or incorrect information and an explanation of why the incorrect answer is wrong and the correct answer is right. Type of feedback in computer-based instruction. Bug-related. Computer provides item level, correct, incorrect information, and information about specific errors obtained from a bug library of common errors. Attribute isolation. Computer provides item level, correct or incorrect information, and highlights important attributes of the concept being learned. Effectiveness of feedback in computer-based instruction. In general, the trend is more elaborative feedback to be more effective for learning. Lower ability students seem to benefit more from immediate specific feedback, answer correct or incorrect. Higher ability students may benefit more than feedback that requires them to more actively process information. So, for example, linking to resources. So all of these are actually part of the formative feedback. And the bottom line of doing formative feedback is that you're able to monitor the progress. And the way you're going to have the formative feedback is towards the attainment of the learning target, towards the attainment of the mastery of the learning competency. You give feedback on whether the students, the learners are actually doing the right thing. Or if that student is not doing the right thing, you give feedback that no, that's not the correct one. You switch another process. And all of those things are leading to the attainment of the learning target. So with that, I would like you to view this video, watch this video over and over again, repeatedly, so that you will have a better understanding on what is meant by providing formative feedback. Remember that as teachers, we give formative feedback, we give diagnostic assessment, we give summative assessment, we give placement assessment. So in this case, the provision of formative feedback is part of formative assessment. Thank you very much, and thank you for watching.